One day, the king disguised himself as a poor refugee and wandered into a small village begging for food. A kind-hearted shepherd named Samuel felt sorry for the stranger. Not only did he invite him into his home for a warm meal, but he also packed some food for him to eat on his journey. The king looked at Samuel with great admiration and quietly remembered his name. After returning to the palace, the king immediately wrote Samuel a letter, inviting him and his faithful dog to attend a royal banquet. The letter clearly stated the time of the banquet, but there was one strange detail. It didn't include an official invitation pass. On the day of the banquet, Samuel put on his cleanest clothes and traveled to the royal palace with his dog. But as soon as he reached the city gate, the guard stopped him. His simple clothing made him look nothing like an honored guest. Samuel showed them the king's letter. The guard instantly recognized the king's handwriting. He realized that anyone personally invited by the king would surely receive a generous reward. Greed quickly took over. The guard demanded that Samuel give him half of whatever reward the king offered. Otherwise, he wouldn't be allowed to enter. Samuel calmly agreed and continued toward the palace. However, when he reached the palace entrance, another royal guard blocked his path. After reading the king's letter, this guard had the exact same idea. He also demanded half of Samuel's reward in exchange for letting him inside. Without arguing, Samuel agreed once again. Finally, he entered the banquet hall. The king warmly welcomed him and seated him among the noble guests. Secretly, however, the king instructed the servants not to give Samuel a spoon. When the feast began, the king smiled and lifted his spoon. "Everyone," he announced, "let us enjoy the soup together." Then he jokingly added, "Anyone who fails to finish their soup is a puppy." The guests laughed and eagerly began eating. Samuel looked down. There wasn't a spoon anywhere at his place. Instead of panicking, he picked up a hard piece of bread. He carved out the center and cleverly turned it into a makeshift spoon. The king and every noble at the table stared in amazement. Then Samuel smiled and said, "Since everyone has now finished their soup, the king's challenge is over. But I have a new one. Anyone who doesn't eat their spoon is a foolish donkey." With that, Samuel calmly ate the bread spoon in just a few bites. The entire banquet hall fell silent. The king burst into laughter. "I only wanted to play a little joke on you," he said. "But instead, you outsmarted me." Delighted by Samuel's wit, the king promised to reward him with anything he wished. To everyone's surprise, Samuel replied, "I ask for 40 lashes." The king was completely confused. Why would you ask for such a punishment? Samuel then explained everything that had happened at the gates, including how both guards had demanded half of whatever reward he received. The king immediately understood. Since Samuel had promised each guard half of his reward, the king ordered that each dishonest guard receive 20 lashes. Together, they received the full 40. As for Samuel, he was generously rewarded by the king and happily returned home with his loyal dog, having proven that honesty and wisdom will always triumph over greed.